Hingol National Park is one of the largest protected areas in Pakistan. Yet it remains one of the least understood and most deliberately ignored regions in the country. Stretching endlessly across Balochistan, where the desert crashes into the Arabian Sea, creating a landscape so hostile and isolated that even modern infrastructure seems to avoid it. Roads leading into Hingol feel unfinished. Communication signals weaken without warning. And the farther one travels, the more reality itself begins to feel unstable, as if the land rejects human presence. Unlike other national parks celebrated for tourism, Hingol exists in silence, spoken of cautiously by locals who believe the area is not empty but occupied by something unseen. Travelers often report a strange pressure in the chest upon entering the region, a feeling of being watched without seeing eyes, as though the land itself is aware of intrusion. Maps show Hingol clearly, yet stories surrounding it are fragmented, censored, or dismissed, creating the unsettling impression that this place is not forgotten by accident, but hidden by intention. The most disturbing feature of Hingol is not its harsh climate or jagged terrain, but the unnatural silence that engulfs the region, a silence so complete that it feels artificial, almost controlled. Visitors describe how wind abruptly dies, insects stop making sound, and even footsteps seem muted, as if the air itself absorbs noise. At night, the silence becomes overwhelming, pressing against the mind until thoughts feel louder than reality. Some claim they hear whispers emerging from nowhere, not voices exactly. Scientists attribute this sensation to isolation and psychological stress. Yet those who experience it insist it feels external, as if something is intentionally quiet, waiting. This silence has driven travelers to panic, causing seasoned explorers to abandon their journeys, convinced that staying longer would invite consequences they could not explain. When Hingol was officially declared a national park, early survey teams were dispatched to document wildlife, geography, and geological formations. But their reports contained anomalies that never reached the public eye. Instruments malfunctioned without cause, compasses spun wildly, and radio transmissions collapsed even at short distances. Several team members recorded intense headaches, nausea, and sudden fear without identifiable triggers. One documented incident involved a researcher who wandered away from camp at night and was never found. His disappearance quietly attributed to disorientation, despite the absence of tracks or signs of struggle. These early warning signs were filed away, ignored, or rewritten, marking the beginning of a long pattern of denial that would later fuel darker theories about what truly exists within Hingol's borders. For generations, nomads and fishermen living along the edges of Hingol have shared stories they rarely tell outsiders. Stories of lights emerging from the sea and shapes appearing in the desert long after sunset. Fishermen describe glowing orbs rising silently from the water, hovering briefly before accelerating skyward at impossible speeds, while nomads traveling by night report seeing tall, human-like figures standing motionless in their path, figures that vanish or turn to stone when approached. These witnesses are not thrill seekers, but people whose survival depends on understanding their environment. And their fear is not dramatic, but restrained, rooted in experience. Many refuse to travel through certain zones entirely, believing those areas belong to something else, something that does not tolerate observation. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena above Hingol are not limited to local stories, as multiple pilots have privately confirmed encountering fast-moving lights that behave unlike any known aircraft. These objects shift direction instantly, hover without propulsion, and disappear from radar without warning, often within restricted airspace. Unlike conventional aircraft, they avoid populated routes and seem aware of observation, retreating when tracked. Official explanations cite weather anomalies or visual misinterpretation. Yet, aviation experts argue that such behavior defies aerodynamic logic. The consistency of these sightings over decades has strengthened the belief that Hingol may host activities deliberately concealed from public knowledge. Hingol's rock formations are among the strangest in the world, shaped like faces, creatures, and monuments that appear unnervingly intentional. While erosion explains their appearance, witnesses claim some formations change position overnight, a phenomenon that defies natural explanation. Visitors who touch certain rocks report unusual warmth and vibration, describing a sensation similar to a heartbeat beneath stone. Geologists dismiss these claims, yet cannot explain why animals avoid these areas entirely, or why people feel sudden dread when standing nearby. These stones have become central to the belief that Hingol is not merely shaped by nature, but influenced by forces still active beneath its surface. Despite being labeled a national park, large sections of Hingol National Park are quietly restricted, with no clear public explanation for why civilians are discouraged or outright prevented from entering certain areas. Travelers have reported encountering unmarked checkpoints, sudden roadblocks, and armed patrols far from any official military base, raising uncomfortable questions about what is being protected in a supposedly open conservation zone. Satellite imagery of Hingol reveals blurred regions and unusual grid-like markings on the terrain, patterns that do not resemble natural formations and appear inconsistent with wildlife preservation. Officials claim these restrictions exist for safety and environmental protection. Yet, the secrecy surrounding them mirrors the behavior of high-security military installations. leading many to believe that Hingol functions as something more than a park, possibly a testing ground for activities deemed too sensitive to acknowledge. Theories surrounding Hingol divide sharply between two unsettling possibilities: advanced human experimentation or the presence of something non-human. Some researchers suggest the region is ideal for testing classified aircraft, surveillance technology, or energy weapons due to its isolation and minimal population, which could explain aerial anomalies and electromagnetic disturbances. Others argue that the behavior of the light-silent movement, instant acceleration, and apparent awareness does not match any known technology, pointing instead toward extraterrestrial involvement. What fuels both theories is the lack of transparency, the consistent suppression of information, and the pattern of witnesses being discredited rather than investigated. In Hingol, the question is not what explanation exists, but why no explanation is ever fully offered. Over the years, several individuals who ventured deep into Hingol have reportedly vanished, their cases receiving little to no media attention and quickly fading from public awareness. Locals speak of hikers, researchers, and travelers who entered restricted zones and never returned, leaving behind abandoned vehicles, campsites, or personal belongings without signs of struggle. Official records often classify these incidents as accidents or environmental hazards, yet families of the missing claim investigations were rushed or incomplete. The silence surrounding these disappearances has only intensified suspicions that acknowledging them would raise questions too dangerous to answer, reinforcing the belief that Hingol is monitored, not to protect people from nature, but to protect secrets from people. Hidden deep within the harsh terrain of Hingol lies the ancient Hinglaj Mata Temple, a sacred site believed to be thousands of years old and revered long before modern borders existed, making it one of the most mysterious spiritual landmarks in the region. Pilgrims who visit the temple speak of powerful sensations, sudden emotional shifts, and an overwhelming feeling of presence, as if the air itself is charged with something unseen. Legends claim the temple was built on ground chosen not by humans, but by forces beyond understanding, and that rituals performed here once involved sacrifices meant to appease an ancient entity rather than a symbolic deity. While devotees describe the site as divine, others sense something darker, noting that certain areas around the temple are avoided after sunset, not out of tradition, but fear. The coexistence of reverence and dread at Hinglaj Mata raises an unsettling question. Is the power associated with this place truly benevolent, or merely ancient and indifferent to human intention? Long before recorded history, Hingol is believed to have been a center for rituals that predate organized religion, with scattered stone circles, carved symbols, and sacrificial sites hidden across the desert. Local folklore speaks of ceremonies performed under specific lunar phases, where blood was offered not to gods of mercy, but to forces that demanded balance and obedience. Some elders claim these rituals were meant to seal something beneath the earth, a presence that could not be destroyed, but only restrained. Archaeologists have found traces of fire pits and unusual markings that do not match known civilizations. Yet further excavation has often been halted without explanation. These ancient blood legends blur the line between myth and suppressed history, suggesting that Hingol's dangers may not originate from the sky, but from something buried far below. Among the people who live near Hingol, there is an unspoken rule passed down through generations. On certain nights, no one travels, no matter the reason. These nights are said to coincide with specific lunar cycles, when the desert becomes unnaturally active and fear spreads without explanation. Animals refuse to move, dogs howl endlessly, and those who ignore the warnings report hearing footsteps around their camps, whispers circling them in the dark, and shadows moving against the moonlight without casting a source. Survivors of these nights describe overwhelming dread, sudden illness, and the feeling that something is passing through the land, not walking upon it. Whether these events are psychological, environmental, or something far more disturbing, the consistency of the stories has ensured one thing, even in the modern age. Hingol is a place where ancient fear still controls human behavior. In an attempt to rationalize the strange phenomena surrounding Hingol National Park, scientists have proposed explanations ranging from seismic activity and magnetic anomalies to psychological effects caused by isolation and extreme terrain. Yet none of these theories fully account for the consistent, layered experiences reported over decades. Geological shifts may explain some ground movement, but they cannot justify the precision of aerial lights or the sudden electronic failures documented by trained professionals. Magnetic fields fluctuate in many places around the world, yet few produce fear so intense and uniform that seasoned travelers abandon their journeys without clear cause. Even optical illusions fail to explain why animals avoid certain regions entirely, or why instruments malfunction only within specific zones. The more science attempts to simplify Hingol, the more questions arise, leaving behind the uncomfortable realization that not all mysteries bend easily to logic. When pressed for answers, locals do not offer theories or explanations. Instead, they offer warnings. Elders advise travelers to respect the land, to observe without intruding, and to leave before nightfall, insisting that Hingol does not punish curiosity, but arrogance. They believe the land remembers those who disturb it, and that some places are meant to remain untouched, not because they are empty, but because they are occupied. These warnings are delivered without fear or exaggeration, as if stating a simple fact rather than a superstition. To the people who live near Hingol, the mystery is not something to be solved, but something to be survived, and ignoring that wisdom has, according to them, already cost lives. Perhaps the most terrifying possibility is not that Hingol hides secret technology, ancient curses, or visitors from beyond our world, but that it reveals how little control humans truly have over their environment. Hingol stands as a reminder that some places resist explanation, not because evidence is lacking, but because understanding them may come at a cost. Every theory, scientific, military, spiritual, collapses under the weight of unanswered questions, leaving only a silent land that continues to exist, unchanged and unbothered by human speculation. In the end, Hingol National Park does not demand belief, only acknowledgement, and the question it leaves behind is not what is hidden there, but whether we are meant to uncover it at all. Hingol National Park remains a place without closure, a land that offers no answers and leaves no proof, only stories that refuse to fade. Whether it is Pakistan's Area 51, an ancient sacred ground, or something far more unsettling, one truth remains constant: those who enter Hingol never leave unchanged. If this story disturbed you, then it has done its job, because some mysteries are not meant to comfort, but to remind us that the unknown still exists. This is Mistry Archives, and some secrets are better left in the dark.